Hello all! Today I'm sharing the process for making my first infinity scarf. This scarf is made partially from yarn donated by Tamar, one of the OG yarn brats. I'm really pleased with how this turned out, and I hope you enjoy the video. My name is Took. I'm a disabled genderqueer weaver who's had life take odd turns, but who knows that even tattered and worn yarn still has value, and that tired joints and health flares don't have to stop the journey. I weave exclusively with second-hand fibers, aided with adaptive warping, HR and OSHA cats, and a wonderful found family. Welcome to Hawksong Weaving, where all our paths are a little bit warped. First, a bit of an explanation on why I've developed this adaptive warping method. I have hypermobile Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, which has cascaded into postural orthostatic tachycardia syndrome. So for time's sake, know that I have joints and collagen that doesn't work, and if I shift positions too quickly, I get pre-syncope or pre-fainting symptoms. All of this comes with chronic pain, so for a lot of reasons, a traditional warping board doesn't work for me, along with being really expensive and taking up a lot of space in my small studio. So I use an accordion coat rack as my warping board. It's nice and neat, it contracts into a smaller space, and I can adjust it as I need to. And I don't need to be up and down and all around and having tachycardia, a racing heart, that stresses out my medical alert cat Penelope Calico. She is not actually trained for any of this, she's just a calico with tortitude and opinions about my heart rate that she is willing to scream at me or tattle on me to my partners about. Usually for scarves I'll use fewer pegs, but because this is going to be an infinity scarf, I wanted it a bit longer, hence why I'm using this particular configuration. I usually use this configuration for blankets, or when I'm making weaving blanks for bags. Blank being a term I use for just a weaving that I have not yet turned into a particular long-term project. This loom is a 15-inch wide shucked cricket loom. It's a rigid heddle loom, and I love it so much. It's birch, it's very sturdy, it can take a beating, but it's light enough that I can lift it even when I'm having a pain or a fatigue day. It's also one of the cheapest looms on the market, averaging around $250 at the time of filming. Skipping ahead a bit so that this video doesn't drag, but for reference, this process took about 15 minutes all told. If you're trying out this method and it takes longer, don't worry. I've been doing this for about once to twice a day for years, and my muscle memory has it down. But now that the warp threads are sorted, I'm lifting up the loom to release the warping board from the loom, gathering the warp threads into one large bundle and using the back of my neck to drape them over and keep them tidy and out of the way while I collapse the warping board and get the terry cloth towels in place. I use terry cloth towels to cushion the warp threads. This helps prevent the finished weaving from being tighter at the ends and looser in the middle, creating a sort of sausage profile in the weaving. They also have more grip than the traditional cardstock, which I find difficult to use because it tends to slide all over the place. Every other week or so, I'll wash and dry the terry cloth towels, as the pressure from how tight I prefer the tension of my warp to be can flatten them over time and make them less effective at cushioning the warp threads. I recently realized that cutting the warp loops in one go was a lot easier than the previous way that had me cutting the warp loops at the end of winding the warp. This is so much easier and also decreases the amount I need to trim at the end of the weaving. And now I'm able to just use that scrap for fillers for various other projects and just move on to threading the rigid heddle. This isn't a great angle, but I'm being careful to pay attention to how the warp threads are laying on the back bar of the loom, and the right-hand thread goes through the smaller hole in the rigid heddle reed. It's not critical, and some minor mistakes aren't the end of the world, but it does make it easier to keep the tension of the warp threads even across the entire weaving. I'd like to thank you for watching. If you'd like to support my work, some free ways to do that are to like, subscribe, or follow, and share. This applies to other small artists as well. It's a great way to let the social media algorithms know that this is content worth watching. If you'd like to support me financially, there's a Buy Me a Coffee linked below, which acts as sort of a tip jar. I also now have YouTube memberships fully set up. This gets you access to videos as soon as I post them, rather than on the schedule of parallel resting videos on Tuesdays or project and unboxing videos on Fridays. Everyone gets the shorts at the same time because I need that dopamine hit. Also, now that there are so many of you absolutely fantastic and wonderful subscribers, I've been able to link the online Hawksong Weaving shop, so feel free to check out the unique hand-woven products. This next bit is absolutely a joke, but just in case, in this economy I won't say no. For $1,000 a month, you can tell me that I'm not actually disabled, I'm just lazy, and to try whatever yoga, juice cleanse, snake oil nonsense fixed to your cousin. Feel free to message me and I'll get you my payment deets. I take Cash App, Venmo, PayPal, and check for this nonsense because YouTube wouldn't let me set up this membership tier as a joke. Feel free to mail the check, or more likely, donations of yarns, buttons, etc. to the P.O Box listed down below. After many requests from the yarn brats and a firm talking to from my partners and therapist, I am now accepting physical donations of items that will improve my quality of life. There's a list on the Hawksong Weaving website. If by chance duplicates are sent of an item, I'll make sure to get that item to other disabled genderqueer artists in my community. There are a lot of us around Northampton, Massachusetts, so nothing will go to waste. I originally wasn't going to accept this type of donation, as the yarn was helping me do my work and create content, but as my therapist pointed out, I can't make content without a functional body, and the items on the wish list will help with that. Please do not gift anything if your finances are under strain. Take care of yourself first. This particular bit of voiceover took 5 takes because I kept stuttering, and I'm deeply uncomfortable, but it is a discomfort that I need to get past because I get to be supported and people get to support me, and even if I don't feel like I deserve it, or it's, yeah, we're just gonna keep moving on. Here we go. CPTSD sucks. Attaching the warp to the bottom apron bar is pretty easy. I finger comb it, get it separated into bits about 4 to 5 warp threads wide, separate these bits into 2, and then do a half hitch tie to the apron bar, starting at the center so that the apron bar doesn't flip all over the place. And because these yarns have a fairly high mohair content, they're sticking together a little bit more than I would like, so a bit more finger combing in the process. But starting at the beginning of the apron bar, this is so much easier than starting it on either side. It just makes the entire process a lot easier. Now getting the next terry cloth towel in place, and because I prefer a fairly high tension, I'm tightening the warp. If your fingers are hypermobile, please be careful when doing this, as the pressure can bend them backwards, and that is not comfortable. I'm being very careful to sort of tense my thumbs against my own bones, if that makes sense. It makes sense for the people with hypermobile Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, might not make sense for anyone else, but it is very much a, like, okay, the joints aren't going to do the thing, so I'm going to carefully tense the muscles and the bones. And now for the actual weaving. I think I might end up doing a lot more infinity scarves. It's proven to be a great way to use an awkward amount of similar yarn. Like, it's not enough for 2 full scarves, but enough for 1.5 scarves, which then translates to infinity and beyond. Yes, I am a dork, but you already knew that at this point in the video. Some tips and tricks for getting even selvages, and my selvages are one of the things that are most often complimented by other weavers when I'm at vending. When you're first learning to weave, practice these consciously for the first bit of a weaving session. The shuttle goes through and is pulled at a 45-degree angle while pinching at the point of the corner of the selvage. This allows for the weft to have enough space to settle in between the warp and creates a tight turn at the selvage. In order to keep this 45-degree angle in the narrow space of the rigid heddle, you're going to need to wind your weaving down regularly. But this is something that can easily be built in via muscle memory, and it's so satisfying to get those compliments of "holy crap, your selvages" from other weavers. Now tying and cutting off the weaving. Because this is going to be an infinity scarf and I'm not going to be using the fringes, I'm not paying too much attention to my usual 2x2x4 fringe rate. I'm just getting it tied off and cut off. These knots are going to be cut off anyways in the sewing process, so I'm not too fussed. Unrolling and getting a sneak peek of this particular scarf, I'm so pleased with how this has turned out. The mottled nature of the pinks is just wonderful, And again, none of these scraps are going to be going to waste. All of this is going to be used for stuffing for other projects like the scrappy scented sachets. I steam block my wool blend scarves. This helps the wool fibers to soften into each other and relax into the weave. Without blocking, you can get wrinkles because the weave tends to be stiff without the added heat and water, sort of like how your back gets when you've been sitting in a not great position for too long and a boiling hot shower takes care of the knots. I'm also really wanting this to be a very drapey and loose and open weave, so steam blocking is definitely necessary. Now it's time to sew everything together. I am doing a very tight zigzag stitch on each end to make sure that I am not going to have this unravel while I get it all stitched together. And then I'm honestly winging and figuring out the method along the way for getting the ribbons on to sort of cover over that stitching and that seam, and I'm really pleased with how this turned out. So I'm just gonna shush and let the machine sewing work speak for itself. I purchased this vintage cotton lace ribbon from a local thrift store, and I'm also realizing that it was like $3. It was such a great find. But I'm also realizing in this moment that the purple ribbon that tied it together would be kind of perfect. So here we go. Waste not, want not, everything gets used at Hawksong Weaving. And this is perfect and just the exact thickness I needed to cover that particular seam, just to make sure it gets a little flat, a little safe, or not safe rather, but like nice. I want it to be nice. done! I am so incredibly pleased with how this turned out. It is lovely. I accidentally did like the sort of actual infinity loop for this, and it just turned out incredibly well. I'm so pleased with this. It's so warm and drapey and delightful. Yee! Thank you for coming along as I wove this scarf. I'm so glad for the odd turn that your path took that brought you here. Thank you for spending time with me at Hawksong Weaving, where we're all a bit warped, and I hope that you have a truly excellent week. And look, you can wear it as a hood too. Oh, I'm so excited by how this turned out. This is wonderful, and yes, excellent. All good. Yay.